All right, welcome back to another client interview here with New Little Life. We have a great client today. She has finished up her journey and it was really fun and interesting to work with. I knew pretty quickly after we started working with her that we would want to talk about her story because she just has such a unique way of thinking of things. So I'm really, really looking forward to our chat with Phoenix today. If you're new here, my name is Allison Tolman. I'm a breast pump expert and a lactation consultant and a coach for working moms. We have a program called Pumping for Working Moms, where we help high achieving, career driven women transition back to work and use a breast pump to protect their supply so that they can have peace and predictability in their journey and really find that work life balance. Milk shouldn't be controlling your life. You should be controlling that aspect, right? So you can do the other things that you need to do. So that's kind of what we do and how we work with clients. If that sounds like the type of support you're looking for, or as you're listening to our interview today, if you're like, yes, I want this, I want what Phoenix was able to achieve and get, there will be a link down below in the description or show notes, wherever you're watching or listening to this, but that's newlittlelife.com/apply. Let's just jump in to this interview with Phoenix. I'm going to read a short introduction from her, and then we'll bring her on and get started. All right. Phoenix is a first-time parent from Ontario, Canada. She's enjoying balancing the demands of being an outreach nurse, working with marginalized folks while being a parent to a curious and active toddler. She is queer, polyamorous, and so grateful for the amazing support of loved ones in her life. I'm going to bring her on. Welcome. How are you, Phoenix? It's evening for you.
Good.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, so let's just start at the beginning of your story. What was it like when you were either pregnant or just had this baby? What motivated you to even start breastfeeding in the first place?
Yeah, I always knew I wanted to breastfeed. So when I was pregnant, I was doing a lot of research about, like everything to do with pregnancy. Um, as a nurse, I have more like some medical background, obviously, although I don't work in pediatrics or anything like that. And I tend to like to have like as much knowledge as I can, in order to sort of like make plans so that I can be like adaptable, but kind of have an idea of where I want to go with things. And so, yeah, I was researching breastfeeding. I had like, was practicing and that kind of thing, like, figuring out positions and stuff like that. Um, and then when I had my kiddo, things were pretty good. Latched in the hospital, um, had an extra meeting with they had a lactation consultant in the hospital that you could meet with if you wanted. And she said latch looked good, so that was great. Um, and I think she gave me some tips around bringing baby to me instead of like punching and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
other than that, everything was
Mm-hmm.
good. And so we were sent home, and I guess we were kept a little bit longer because he had jaundice. But aside from that, there was no
Okay.
concerns.
Yeah.
Um, and then I just didn't feel like he was getting enough. He took a while to eat. And then I think it was day 5, we realized that he'd only had like 5 wet diapers.
Mm.
And you're supposed to have like, I think 5 that whole day.
Yeah.
So we took him back in. They said he was fine, but I just had this feeling like that something wasn't right. And then it was when he was supposed to have regained his birth weight. They're like, oh, it's taking a little bit longer. So there was like introduction of formula. Um, and so we kind of like bounced back and forth. We were assigned to a bunch of specialists. Um, Everything seemed fine. Nobody could really find an answer. And so I ended up doing like the triple feeding thing where you're like pumping and then feeding and then like feeding formula and then feeding what you've pumped. And yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot of work. And they had like at one point they wanted to introduce like the tube feeding. Um, and so it would be like we would see someone, they would say everything was good. And so it'd be like, yay. And then we'd see the next person, they're like, things aren't good. And so I think I booked the appointment to meet with your program after I'd had like, we were told he was good. Like they did a wait, everything was awesome. And I was like, well, I'm going to be going back to work, and pumping's been really hard. So I want to have a plan for when I go back to work. Um, And the day that I had the meeting, I was told that things weren't good. Um,
Back to that again. This like yo-yo back and forth is more common than you think. Like just
right?
yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. So, um, and so I just felt kind of like that was such a good thing to have had because I come back from that appointment feeling pretty discouraged. And then it was like, hey, we can help you plan. And I was like, I need that. I need a plan.
Yes. Because everything feels chaotic. Oh my
Right?
gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Was this
yeah,
about
I
like
talked
5 weeks postpartum? How do you remember
yeah.
right
Yeah,
around
it's
the
about
point?
5
Yeah,
weeks. Yeah. And so I talked it over with my partner and because like it is like an investment and we're like,
for
does this
sure.
make sense? And I was
Yeah,
like, yeah, because I knew that this was something I really, really wanted. And like formula is expensive.
yeah,
My understanding is that in Canada we import all of our formula. So there was some of the supply chain stuff. Um, there was like for periods of time like you couldn't necessarily get the same brand and stuff like that, so if your kiddo's been like using one, switching them is really challenging, so having some of that ability to like have that kind of like control
yeah,
is nice.
yeah. Were you
um
still combo feeding at that point? Like, or like, were you able to pump enough breast milk at that point, or were you still
no,
supplementing with formula?
still supplementing. Yeah, so I think so that's when I decided to switch just so I started your program and decided to switch fully to pumping to get the supply back. Because he would be like 45 minutes on, but like not get a lot, I guess. And so the first day that I pumped, I think I got you're gonna have to transfer and translate into ounces because I
No,
always do mils.
milliliters is fine, yeah.
I did 300 mils that whole day, and I was
Yeah,
like, wah, wah, wah.
it's probably, like, less than half. It's like 10 ounces, yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm,
yeah.
mhm.
Um, so I think I took about I don't remember how long it was. It was a couple of days, and I basically didn't feed him. I just focused on pumping, on getting that the supply back and watching a
Yeah,
lot of the videos and stuff like that. Um, and I can't remember how fast it was, but it was quite quickly that I was able to get my supply back up, which was really good. Um, and then um yeah, he stopped wanting to breastfeed, so then I had to, like, reintroduce that once I had the supply again.
mhm.
Um, but it was really I don't know, it felt like I had, like, you guys with me the whole time, even, like, not during the calls and stuff, like, I remember, like, I'd watch a lot of the videos at night when, like, I'd be pumping at night.
Yeah. Yeah, really common. We have a lot of videos, like, inside of our curriculum that and it's similar to the you like, it's you've already learned from me on YouTube, so, like, coming in the
Mhm.
curriculum and learning that way seems really, like, fluid
Yeah.
for most people, but that's when they a lot do, and we're like, "Whenever I sit down to pump or, like, in the nights when I'm bored anyway, I can be learning and trying new things," so that's funny. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it was also too because like, at night, there's less to distract you, or at least for me,
Yeah.
there's less to distract me, and so those are the times where I'd be like, your brain's going, right? And it's like this thing and that thing and this other thing, and like so having just like learning is really calming for me. So like being able to just sit there and like be like whatever else is happening, I'm actively doing something to make a
Yeah.
difference. Like I'm taking in information, and then I sleep, and your brain kind of like reorders it into things. So
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah, do you remember? Because I remember that too, your supply or at least output increased pretty quickly, like and
yeah,
this is like a common misconception, people think, "I have such a low supply," and then when you
yeah,
start pumping correctly, it's like, that happens so
mhm,
fast. I'm like, the milk is
yeah,
probably a lot
yeah,
there.
yeah.
Do you remember anything in particular that really, like, made a difference for you, especially to get results so quickly? It's not uncommon to get results that quickly in our program, but I'm always
Yeah, I
curious
think
to know.
I think it had the amount that I was pumping was really helpful. I was pumping a lot. So when I first started, like there's so many different things that you can do, right? And
Mhm.
so for me, it was like I can't do it all. So what can I focus on? And so I decided to focus on like pumping sessions rather than being like perfect at pumping because I was
Okay.
like, I'm sure my
Mhm.
like technique will improve as I go. but right now I want to like develop my schedule and kind of like get that in place. So that worked really well. And then like the amount of time I spent pumping decreased, especially after I got like appropriately sized flanges.
Yeah, that's always like people. Yeah, that's a big one. Yeah, for sure. And then were you able to get up and stop supplementing, or could you always
Yeah.
supplement through the whole experience?
No, yeah, so my goal, because I wanted to set myself a goal that was like that I could meet, right? I didn't want to set
Yeah.
myself something too unachievable. So I remember setting the goal as at a year I wanted to pump for a year and be providing 80% breast milk and then only supplementing 20%. And very quickly I started hitting like 100% breast
Yeah.
milk. Yeah, yeah, and then
I
I
remember
like
that with you. I was like, and it actually surprises me to hear that that was your initial goal because like so quickly, like within a month, you were like,
oh yeah,
I got like it was probably weeks actually, but
yes,
at that
yeah.
month mark, you were like, oh, were you up to like 1,000 milliliters a day
Oh
if I
yes,
remember
yeah.
right?
No, I was
Yeah.
pumping over the summer. I was pumping. So when he was like, let's see how old he would have been, like 5 months. I was pumping 1,200 mils, and I kept it at that for a while. But he was
Awesome.
also like a really big eater. He's slow. He's so slow at eating. He's in daycare, and they're like, he's a great eater. Takes a while though. And I was like, yes, yes, he does.
So was he on the upper end? Was he like taking close to 1,000, somewhere between like
He was
900 and
over like
1,000?
1,100.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
big eater. Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
awesome. Good for him,
All of
buddy.
it
Like,
is in his head. He's got a 99th percentile head, and he's
of
like quite
course.
tall. So it was like he's not very chubby, unfortunately. Like he's not one of those like roly poly babies, but that's okay.
Yeah. So you ended up with extra. Were you freezing
Yeah.
milk every day then?
Yeah, yeah. So I would freeze it and I donated most of it. So I don't keep a lot stashed. Yeah, and that was one of the things I've always wanted to be able to do was to donate. So I've been able to help three other kiddos, like fairly two of them like very consistently. Yeah, so
That's
that's been really cool.
amazing. Not
Yeah.
and it's crazy thinking back to where you started, which was like, I'm triple feeding, I'm pumping
Yeah.
10 ounces a day. Like, I
Yeah.
think I can get to 80%. And then to be doing, 110% and donating to
Yeah.
other kiddos is absolutely crazy. I love
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was yeah, I remember trying to figure out my magic number early on because I wasn't either like, like not great supply or not great technique or like, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I remember early on like figuring I was like, I'm gonna have to be doing like 10 pumps a day. And I was thinking about like when I go back to work and I'm like, oh, like I'm never gonna be able to do that. And I remember kind of like telling myself, like, whoa, like kind of like one day at a time, right? Like, and if I had gotten back to in Canada we can have like a lot longer mat leave than you get in the States.
Mhm.
And so you're guaranteed full year and a half, something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know because I went back early. I went back at 8 months
It's
because I
at
left my
least
job.
12 months in Canada.
Yeah.
If it's longer, maybe, but it's at least 12, it sounds right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I went back early because I really liked it. So I went back at 8 months. Um, and if I had tried to go back and like been having to pump like 10 times a day, I don't know how I would have done that. But yeah, I was able to be pumping. I think I was pumping 5 times a day when I went back, which was, I mean, you make it work. Sleep
Yeah.
deprivation's a thing.
You make it work. Yeah. And that's kind of always our goal too, is like, how can we get you pumping less or faster? Like, so that you
Yeah.
can do either like sleep, work, whatever. Do you think you would have gone back to work at that 8-month mark if you had still kind of been in that triple feeding
Ooh.
point? Like, would you have done it either way? Just curious.
Uh, I don't know. I don't know. That would have been really, really tough. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what I would have done with that.
I
Yeah.
don't know. I just feel like being in that much control gives you so many more choices in your life,
Hmm.
you know?
Yeah.
If you had that
Yeah.
12-month goal and that was like a hard cutoff for you, I can only imagine at 8 months if things were still like, if you were still under supplying, being like, how am I going to go back
Yeah.
and I don't know. It just seems chaotic to me.
Yeah, no, for sure. For sure. It would have been more stressful. I mean, I've got a really great workplace and they've been like really supportive. So maybe I would have just like found a way to pump more at work. I mean,
Done
you
it
do what
and
you
made
need
it
to do,
work. Yeah.
right? Yeah.
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 What was it like going back as a nurse? And I know your job is kind of unique in how it
Mhm.
functions, but what was that like kind of fitting pumping into a schedule and environment like that?
I think because I'd been pumping for so long, it was really easy. It was one of those things where like, I mean, the way you like choose to look at things really changes things. So like I know like so I ended up like exclusively pumping.
Yeah.
We did like yeah, we did some we once I got him breastfeeding again, it was we only did it at night for like comfort and bonding stuff. I found for me, when we were he weaned entirely at 10 months. He was like, "Yeah, I'm done." He was more interested on like in sucking on the pumps than he was ever in breastfeeding. I'm
Um,
like, "Thanks.
yeah.
Thanks."
Yeah. Makes me feel so good,
um
but whatever. Mm, yeah.
But yeah, I found that when we were doing that like one breastfeed overnight, it was really helpful for regulating my mood. Like it's amazing the way the like hormones and
Mhm.
everything work. It's just wild. It's so cool. It's fascinating. Um, but yeah, no, I often kind of think about it as like there's a lot of like benefits and like kind of like a blessing in disguise kind of thing about having to do exclusive pumping that I was super comfortable with pumping by the time I went back to work. You know, like so I went back to work in September and in August we did that trip to Scotland to visit family.
Mhm. Yeah.
And like supposedly there's like a little pod thing that you can rent, kind of like there that you can like sign in
Oh,
with an
yeah, the
app.
airports and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and that was my plan. It was used the entire time I was waiting there. So I'm just like, like in one of the like waiting areas, just, under my little thing
Yep.
pumping. And I'm just like, I'm not like a graceful person. I am so awkward and clumsy. And so I was like, oh, I really hope I'm like, whoops,
But also whatever. I mean, they're just boobs,
right?
and this is what they're for. So whatever. Oh
But yeah,
gosh.
because I've been doing it for so long, it was like, like it wasn't as like awkward and or like I'd kind of like gotten through a lot of the awkward, like growing pain kinds of things. And so that was like really nice. And if breastfeeding had been really easy, then that transition would have been really hard, right? So
Yeah. Did you like the exclusive pumping? You mentioned like some benefits in disguise. Like if I remember right, I
mhm,
think you really liked the data and being able to see the milk. But
yes.
tell me, like, what were those things that you actually liked since you were forced into exclusively pumping?
Yeah. So like initially our plan had always been for my partner to do overnights. I
Okay.
need sleep. I don't function well without sleep. And so this really allowed for him to do the overnights because like our kiddos used to getting a bottle overnight from him. They like did like co-sleeping kind of stuff.
Okay.
We had like a floor mattress kind of thing. Um,
Mhm.
and so like it really allowed them to have like really great bonding time and stuff like that. The first time that kiddo like was preferential for a parent, he wanted my partner, which, like, I think some people would be, like, heartbroken for, but I'm like, "This is so awesome that they have that bond because
Great.
like,
I would
so many
love to go
dads
to
don't
yeah.
have that, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, so that
Yeah.
was, like, really cool. The bottle thing, like, anyone could take care of him. We've got so he's, like, the
Yeah.
first grandkid on, like, all the sides.
Sure.
So he's, like lots of
Everybody
people
wanted to feed him.
yeah,
Yeah.
everyone wanted to feed him and also like,
Mhm.
like for him to spend time with them. So like it was like I was able to leave very easily because like he would take a bottle and stuff like that. So that was really nice. What are the other things? Oh, I guess like a lot more control over my schedule because I could be like, okay, so I'm gonna pump it this
Mhm.
time, da da
Yeah.
da da da, right? And like kind of work things around that. And like I didn't have I didn't have, like, a lot of concerns around, like, mastitis if the baby decides to sleep overnight and stuff like that, Like, it was sort of like
Mhm.
he was sleeping on his schedule and I was pumping on my schedule, and it was yeah, it was yeah, I got to control things more.
Yeah. It's yeah, I know. And that's what a lot of people that join our program do kind of have that tendency. Like, I like the control, I like to know and see. And so, but not everyone handles that transition to exclusively pumping as gracefully as you did. So Well done for just being like, here's what I got, and I'm going to
Yeah,
reframe this and find the good parts. And it seemed to work really well for you, at
it
least
did. It
in
did.
that
And
transition and
it's
long
one of
term.
those things like with Andrea, like she's talked a lot and like it's something that I've done like a lot of therapy before this because, in my line of work you
Everyone
just
should. Yeah.
right? Exactly.
Yeah. If you don't have a
Um,
therapist, here's your sign to go get one because
right.
all the best people have one. So, yeah.
Yes, it's true. Yeah,
Mhm.
100%. I also work with a lot of social workers, so it's like, of course you have a therapist. Like,
Everybody does, right? Yeah. They should.
you have like your hairstylist and you have your therapist, of course.
100%. On the same. I love that.
So like, it's one of those things of like recognizing like there is a grief aspect of not getting to breastfeed the way I wanted to. And then when he like weaned really young, like that was hard. Um and like, I'm still processing that because like I had this idea of what I wanted it to be and it wasn't that. And what it was amazing and beautiful and all these positive things, and also there's like a loss, and so it's sort of like holding both is true and it's okay to feel kind of however I feel about it. um and it just sort of is what it is, so yeah.
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 Andrea is the other IBCLC coach inside of our program, and she is especially excellent at these mental and emotional aspects. I mean, I love it too, but she's excellent. And so it's kind of fun having two different, I have like a really data, science driven mind, kind of balancing the practical and the science of your life and stuff. Andrea is really skilled in, in lactation, breastfeeding, and these mental and emotional aspects. So kind of
Mhm.
fun to get to. You just mentioned her name. So I'm like, yeah, I love working with her inside of there.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and it was one of those things where like I know like in the course you talked a lot about like the mental and emotional aspects of like pumping and
Mhm.
letdowns and stuff like that. And I remember early on one of the things we're talking about like, um taking a video of your baby breastfeeding and then using that as a way to get letdowns and stuff. And for me, I found that because I was struggling so much with the getting the breastfeeding to work, that I ended up feeling like really upset when I was watching, like kind of
Yeah,
like
totally.
jealous of the idea, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and so I ended up doing a lot of reading of like trashy YA.
Yeah, get the
Like books and stuff,
oxytocin
right?
going, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And so like
Yeah.
yeah, it's like it's almost kind of like separate in a lot of ways for me. Like it's like, yeah, and I guess that's another positive for me because like I'm pumping. This is sort of like me time in a lot of ways. Like, well, I can't do anything else. Like, like I'm pumping.
Yeah. Take a minute for yourself and have a little break from life. Yeah.
Right? Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
So, and then also things like, like eating yummy snacks can also be helpful. And so like I often will eat while I'm pumping. Like I like chocolate chip cookies. I eat a lot of chocolate chip cookies. So
Oh, yeah. Awesome. So, how old's your little one now? Are you still pumping? Are you totally done? What's that like for you? Tell me where you're at now.
yeah, so he's 14 months, almost 15 months. And yeah, I'm still pumping and donating a lot of it. Um I really like that having the milk for him has like allowed me to be really chill in terms of introducing food.
Mm,
Because
mhm.
we introduce solids, he like I said, his daycare says he's a great eater. But like
Yeah.
I don't have to have any kind of like power struggle about it because like I know that at the end, like his last feed, if he's still hungry, he'll drink more milk, and if he's less hungry, he drinks less, and I know he's getting all the nutrients he needs. um yeah, so I don't know when I'm gonna stop. It's not super inconvenient in my life any like at all, so yeah. Yeah.
Did you consider it at that 12-month mark? Because I know that was like your original goal. Or was it just like, I'm not even going to think about it. I'm just going to keep going?
I thought about it. At 12 months, we got like we kept getting sick. Because
Yeah.
he started daycare at 12 months.
Mhm.
And yeah, we got like everything. I got pneumonia for the first time in my life.
How was your milk supply while you were sick with that? Because you would probably know, exclusively pumping, exactly what happens when you get sick. Yeah.
Same
How much did
same
it
as when
drop
we
for
got
you? Do you
COVID.
remember?
Sorry?
How much did it drop for you? Do you remember?
Oh, I think it was down to like 600 mils a day from like, I think like 800, 900, something around there.
Okay, so almost a third. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And same with, so we got COVID when we, when we did our Scotland trip in at the end of the summer. And that was the supply drop was my first symptom. Because I was like, I don't know, this is something's really weird. My supply's gone
Yeah.
down.
Yeah.
And I was very sick, and I was like, yes, that would explain it. Yep, 100%.
Were you able to get it back up both times after those sicknesses?
Yeah, COVID had bounced it back really quickly. In January with the pneumonia, it took a lot longer. But he like, he would pick something up, so then I'd be sick. So it was like, like that kind of.
Yeah.
But one of the really cool things about that was the one person that I donate my milk to reached out to me to let me know that she'd been trying to wean her kid onto like cow's milk. And her kid had been sick and hadn't been eating for like, I think like 2 days or something like that, like not well or whatever. No, she hadn't been playing. And then she gave her my donated milk, and it was like the next day, the first day she'd seen her play, and she was like happy, and yeah, it felt good.
Your milk is probably seriously full of antibodies after being sick so many
Oh
times. It's probably like gold. You can sell that stuff for a lot of money.
yeah.
Like,
Right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
yeah, that's
So
so cool. And sometimes you see
yeah.
a bigger difference when like a kiddo like that is not solely on, you know what I mean? So such an
Yeah.
interesting story. And I love how it's given you more freedom to even make choices with your kiddo, of like,
Mhm.
I don't really have to stress that much about solids because I know he's getting like that
Yeah.
backup nutrition, which you can't
Yeah.
really say if they're on cow's milk because it's just like
Yeah.
not the
Yeah.
same. You'd be
Exactly.
surprised how many moms continue breast milk after 12 months. And I remember as a first time mom, nothing magic happened on the first birthday. And I'm like, this thing
Mhm.
is still a baby. Like,
Yeah.
I don't feel like I can switch them. I mean, you
Yeah.
definitely can.
Yeah.
It's safe, so the experts say.
Yeah.
But I think what you're doing is more common than we think. So,
Yeah, yeah, I had friends who were like, breastfeeding for a long time, and like I said, like I need my sleep and stuff like that. So I remember being like, "Oh man, like, all the power to them, but that's not a choice I'd ever make." And then you're there, and like this is why I shouldn't say what I'll do in a situation before I get there. But like, like now I'm here, like even if I was still breastfeeding him, I think that I'd like want to keep going. Like, I mean, it's disruptive and it's hard, and in the moment it feels like it's an eternity. But like it's been what, 14, almost 15 months. It's a blink of an eye. Like it's so fast. But like you look back, like, because I have friends who had like 1 month old, 2 month old kids, right? And they're like, what were you doing for like when you like encountered this? And I'm like, oh man, I don't even remember. Like,
it was all a blur.
right? But it felt huge. And I remember feeling like, and I know people said like, try to let it go. But I remember in the moment being like, these like small decisions are critical. Like, so like, a year later, you're like, yeah, I don't know what I decided.
You're like, I have no idea. I can't remember that moment in my life. Yeah. And some of the decisions are important, which is why I'm so glad that you got help really quickly. And even
Mhm.
5 weeks, that was a long 5 weeks for you of like back and
Yes.
forth, weight gain, not weight gain,
Yeah.
fine, not fine. And your supply
Yeah.
was not in a great place. If you
No.
had waited another few weeks, it would have been a different story. And so, like, some of those early
Mhm.
decisions are really crucial. And
Yeah.
I'm glad you were brave enough to get the help and make the investment to do it. Like our program's it's not expensive, but it's not cheap either. Like you got to
Mhm.
really commit and want this and come in
Yeah.
and do the work. And you did. You did such a great
Yeah.
job.
Yeah.
Yeah. I felt like every time we chatted, you you were so fun because you'd like, I have a question, but you give us a question and then you'd also come up with the plan you had formulated, which is I think almost every time it was nearly exactly what we would have said anyway. You really like became your own expert. Did you feel that way too?
Yes. Yeah, for sure. I think I wrote this in like in the answer to some of your questions, but like I remember early on, I was going through like the modules or whatever, and I remember it was like one of the goals of the program was to become our own expert. And I remember it was like the middle of the night, and I was like, "No, I just need you to tell me what to do." Like, I need
I
some
don't want to learn anything. Just give me the plan.
like I don't know what I'm doing. I just need someone to come and just be like, do this and it'll be perfect. Um, but like, yeah, like learning all the different like things because like our bodies are all different, you know? And so like um having that confidence. So like when I got COVID and like the first thing I noticed was my supply had gone down, I was like, oh, my supply's gone down. Well, I'm gonna increase the number of times I pump in a day and like I'm gonna make sure that I'm getting enough fluids and like, like and we'll
Mhm.
see what happens and like if that doesn't fix it like I know I have these other like things I can do, right? And it's like all those kinds of things where it's like you hit these stumbling blocks and you're like, okay, so based on what I know, here's like the next things. And then I have you guys to like if I can't problem solve it on my own, I can always like jump in on a call with you guys or put a message in the group chat thing and get that support as well. And so it's just I don't know, it's like knowing that I have all that stuff makes it feel less scary and I don't feel alone, which is really nice.
Yeah. You remember you came to quite a few of our group coaching calls. Did you enjoy kind of those
Mhm.
moments being with the other moms? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting because like I thought going into the program that I would be like kind of unusual in terms of the like exclusively pumping and then also like because most of the like a lot of what I did was before I went back to work. So it was like, I was still
Mm.
at home. And like the other people in the groups like just ran the gambit and it was so nice to like hear other people's stories of like cuz like I related to like bits and pieces of everyone's experiences, right? And so it was so cool to like have a group of people where we had like like the same or similar goal because like I had people in my life who were really supportive but they're also not in it. And so like having other people who are like I'm struggling with this thing and this is how I'm feeling and like they're up at night too like it's just
They
that kind
know
of thing.
exactly what you're talking about. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, and so that was really nice just to get that perspective as well and that kind of like camaraderie.
Yeah. It's so often on those group calls that we'll be talking through something with a mom, and then someone else will raise their hand and be like, while you were talking to her, that actually like made me think, like, what about this? It's just like things you don't think of.
Mhm,
But you're right, we have an application for our program. We don't take everyone that applies because we like to keep it really focused. So, but that doesn't mean that everyone's like the same because you all are different. But these are high level moms used to achieving a lot in their lives. They like control, they like learning. Like these are very common traits for people in our program. And they're all like going back to work eventually, but a lot of them
mhm,
are on maternity leave still, or we have quite a few from Canada actually too, where they have long, long maternity leaves, and it doesn't matter. Like it's like the
mhm,
same kind of person. So it's really fun to be in a space with people that are similar and have a similar goal. If you don't really care about breast milk, you're not going to invest in our program. You're not going to be there anyway, And it's like, that's fine. Everyone can have their own like stance and goals, but we do end up with people that are just very like-minded, which is a
mhm.
really fun place to be in.
Yeah.
I would love to know, as we kind of like wrap up, do you have
Mhm.
any advice for working moms or maybe anything you would go and tell yourself earlier that you wish you knew, or just, I don't know, pumping working moms, anything that you've learned that's been impactful?
Yeah, one of the things I found helpful for me, and again, it's like one of those things of like whether numbers work for you. Um, I really liked measuring my output in mils because there's a lot more gradation. And so I was
Yeah.
able, especially at the beginning, because I remember I had like the little nursettes and I don't remember how many mils I went to, but not a lot. And I remember like being like, yes, I got 17 mils this time, right? Like as I was like building up. And so I know like we have the like celebrate the wins kind of thing. And it's definitely that where it's like being able to like see your improvement, see like this is where I was, this is where I'm going, and like being able to see like kind of the tangible steps and celebrating those, I think is super important. And then having people who are like cheerleading you. Because I mean, I'm sure everyone knows this, but like everyone comes out of the woodwork and has opinions and advice.
Yes, they do.
and
Yes, they do.
and like almost all the time it's meant from a place of love and caring and that kind of thing, but it isn't always necessarily in alignment with what your goals are. And so having people who, or even like a person who's like cheering you on and is just like, yeah, like I know that you will choose the right thing for you, and I'm like, like in your corner. I think that that's just really important to have in order to like kind of trust some of your own instincts. So,
Yeah. And I remember doing that a lot with you, just being like, you already know. And like, you got this. Because for me, it doesn't matter. Like, I don't care how long you feed your baby. I don't care what it looks like. I just care that you get what you want in the best way you can and that you have control
hmm
and can make decisions. But
hmm
it is shocking how many people want to tell you how to do things. And this is hard too, because this is where social media fails us a little bit, because you have people giving advice just based on their own experience
yeah.
and sometimes their own trauma and guilt that like comes
Mhm.
out in advice to
Yeah.
you. And so
Yeah.
it's really important to like have people to bounce ideas off of, but also
Mhm.
people that are not less biased. You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
this is
Yeah.
my job. We're here to hold space. My personal
Mhm.
experience doesn't matter because I'm here to
Yeah.
serve you. I hope there's a healthy balance of that in the program. That's always what we're shooting
Yeah.
for.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I really appreciate it. Again, like having that like theoretical underpinning with the modules was super important. And like I remember, and I think I mentioned this at one of the times, like I had a pediatrician who told me, like that he was giving me permission to stop pumping. Because I think he had a lot of moms who are like just overwhelmed and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh no, like the pumping is fine. My baby's just taking 45 minutes on a bottle and I want to know if that's normal, like so sometimes like those appointments you're not on the same page with the provider as well. And so it's like it's one of those things where like, all of the information is good, but like being able to kind of like set aside anything that doesn't apply is helpful.
Yeah. Also, I don't really see how stopping pumping helps a bottle problem anyway, but because he still needs a
But
bottle of something. But
right?
okay.
Yeah, exactly.
It's hard. It can be colored with their own experience and thoughts. And
Mhm.
yeah,
Mhm.
I don't know what pediatricians are like up in Canada, but in the United States, it's shocking how often they are just like dismissive of breastfeeding altogether. Oh, you're struggling? Like, formula's okay. I did formula. Your baby will be fine. And I'm like, okay, well, that is true. Like, the baby is going to be fine, but this mom's saying she wants to breastfeed. So let's
Yeah.
like help her with what she wants. I don't know.
Ours are pretty, I would say that they're pretty like positive around breastfeeding. I think what I've found both from like myself and from what a lot of people here like that I've talked to, um, everyone focuses on latch. And if the problem isn't latch, there doesn't seem no one really knows what to do. I had one doctor who referred to my kiddo as a real puzzle. And I was like, great.
That's like not what you want to hear from your care provider. Yeah. Okay.
Also puzzled.
Yeah. Okay. And I apologize to any pediatricians. I didn't mean to like lump you all into a big giant bucket, but I hear that a lot, and I'm like,
hmm
ugh. Again, it's not wrong. Like, formula is a fine way to feed a baby, but if that's not
hmm
what a mom wants, let's find a way to
Right? Yeah.
help her how we can. Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes total
Client-centered
sense.
care. I'm all about that.
I know. Especially as a nurse, like
Right?
that's this is what we're doing. So, Phoenix, it was so fun to talk to you. I could just like pick your brain all day because it's just been fun to watch you over the last year kind of grow and develop. And honestly, you're a star client. You love to learn. You like did the work. You made the thing happen really quickly and were able to sustain it. Asked for help along the way. Like, it's just been so fun. And I'm glad that you are feeling so empowered and so in control of this experience. That's my goal for
Yay.
you. So you are so amazing. And we get to keep working together as long as you need. So
Yeah.
keep on keeping on. And if you need any help weaning from that pump, like, we're right here. That's one of my favorite things, is getting to work with clients long term. I really struggled with like one-off visits. And then like I never
Mhm.
see these people again. And I'm like,
Yeah.
ugh. Like, things
What
change. And
happened?
so
Didn't work
yeah,
out.
it's fun to work more long term. So appreciate your time tonight, and we'll keep talking. All right.
Sounds
Okay,
good.
bye.
Bye.